Let's talk about the purpose of dating. Let's talk about the purpose of dating. I see so many Christians, and I've been in the dating realm, and the thing that I see so often is dating that is exactly like the world's within the Christian culture. Now, I will let you know, I'm a Christian, so everything that I'm going to be talking about is going to come from that biblical worldview lens of viewing it through Christ's creation, Christ's design for us and God's design for us, and how we can live in accordance with how we were created to be and who God is and intelligent design and all of that. And so if you do not believe in God or Christ, it just may not make a whole lot of sense to you, or maybe you just don't care, you just leave it be. But if you do believe in Jesus Christ, then this may make a lot of sense to you. It could be very applicable to you, and even if this is not something that you're actively doing or thinking about, it might actually challenge you to think deeper into your dating relationships. So often as Christians, we do everything exactly like the world does, but we just kind of put a little Christian spin on it. So, we might dress like the world does, but hey, we don't dress exactly like them. We might put, a little bit extra cover here or there, maybe if we're on a good day. Or we might, date exactly as the world does, but, put a little Christian spin on it, like, oh, well, we're not gonna have sex because that's impure and it's clearly wrong according to the Bible, but everything else is fine. Or we do other things just like the world does, and we view our marriages just like the world views marriages, and we view our spouses just like the world views spouses, or we view, this thing like the world does. And I think that dating is one of those things that even conservative Christians and people who actively and genuinely want to follow the Bible fall into the world's ideology of. So often, what is kind of this world ideology of dating? And basically, in a premise, from what I gather and what I see around me, is just like dating is this fun way that you get to know someone, and you may or may not be forever partners, I guess, in the world's eyes, but it's this way you get to know this other person and see humanity and part of the world and have this special relationship. And in the world's eyes, obviously, that comes with living together and doing everything exactly like a married couple would. And it just looks very much like this fun time, this thing of getting to know one another and just getting to see humanity in this way, and kind of like an extended friendship, like this extended friendship type of deal, friend with benefits, That's kind of how the world views dating, just in this very lighthearted, go out for fun, if you're single, who cares type of way. Now, on the other hand, we have Christians. So Christians do view it a little bit differently. So obviously they don't believe in having sex or doing anything that people should wait till marriage to do within their dating relationship. However, most people actually don't think that much about their dating relationships compared to the world's dating relationships. Yeah, sure, they're like, okay, well, I wanna, be pure, but whatever else is fun. And not only that, but I can date for fun. I can do this for fun. Dating is just a fun way to get to know someone, just like that world's ideology. Dating is just a fun way to get to know someone and, explore humanity and get to see myself deeper, maybe get to grow myself, or whatever the case might be. The problem I think that can come along quickly with this mindset is our understanding. So what is God's design? And we know that God's design is for male and a female to come together in marriage. Now, that doesn't mean that every single person is going to be married, okay? But God's design for marriage and for that partnership is the male and the female coming together and becoming husband and wife. And so with that, I think that there's a lot of Christians who take on maybe this extra step of intentionality in their dating relationship. So they're like, you know what? I don't want to be like the world and just go for fun and who cares, but I'm going to take on this little bit of extra step and make it just a little bit more intentional, because maybe I might marry this person one day that I'm dating, and I hope to. Like, I like this person a lot, or maybe you even love them, like you've fallen in love with them. And so we can kind of take on that world's perspective of, oh, like, look, there's a person who likes me, like, let's date. And then after you start dating them, you're like, okay, now we have to be a little bit more intentional. So, they sit there and maybe evaluate their characteristics or their personality, and they're like, you know what, I like this person. I like their characteristics, they're a godly person, we must be a fit for marriage. Like, certainly we're a fit for marriage, and so they get married, just like, people do if they date for an extended period of time or whatever the case might be. And then a couple years pass, a couple years down the road, they still enjoy doing the things that they enjoy doing together, but guess what happens? They have some kids, or they have, a tough time in their life. And what happens is they realize that they kind of have different convictions about things, and they kind of have different world views. Even though they both believe in the Bible, there's still different things and different goals that they have that they didn't think about before when they were dating. And now all of a sudden, like, they're married and they're supposed to be together and be one couple, but the husband's over here wanting to do this, and the wife's over here wanting to do this, and there's tension and there's conflict. And not only is there conflict, but there's also like this disunity in the relationship of that marriage, because they're just sitting there being like, well, we liked each other, like we loved each other, I liked his personality, I wanted to marry him. And then they sit there and think it through, and they're like, well, why isn't this working? Like, why are we having these fights? Why didn't I know this when I was dating? Like, why didn't I see this when I was dating? And so I think we need to bring it back a bit and make dating even more intentional. Now, the reason that I say this is because I think God's design for marriage is so intentional, and He has such a beautiful design, and He desires for marriage relationships to be in unity with one another and to be connected and to be like your best friend and someone you can always come to and who will support you. And not only that, but who believes the same things as you and who wants the same things for your family and has the same goals that you're working towards together. And it isn't constantly feeling like this huge compromise every time an issue comes up, because they're like, oh, well, now we have to talk through our past, and well, I did this whenever we had kids, and I did this, and blah, 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 back and forth. So often, as Christians, we fall into that trap of doing everything like the world does, but with a little bit of extra purity or a little bit of extra, goodness, I guess, sprinkled in, or, well, we're doing this way, or, maybe a little bit of extra intentionality, but we're not truly thinking about what it really means. At the end of the day, we have to understand the purpose of dating. And my question to you is this: what is the purpose of dating, and why? If you think about dating, where is that going to lead? There's only two places. I give you a hint. Just two places. You're either going to be dating that person and eventually marry them, or you will date that person and eventually break up with them. Those are your two options. You don't get any extra options. Now let me say, you can date them for a while and break up with them, and you can be like, well, I learned so much through that relationship and blah, 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 blah. But let me ask you this. What if you had known that before you had ever dated them? What if you'd broken up with them earlier before you had gotten to so many different regrets or such emotional compatibility that you're now so invested in that person, or that you've invested so much time in that person already? Here's the deal. I think because our culture is so focused on compatibility in the areas of personality and just characteristics and character of a person, that we don't ever focus on goals or worldview. And those are the things that are really going to come into play when you get married. Now, I have only been married for a year, so do not take this as, oh my goodness, I know exactly what I'm talking about, I know everything, blah, blah, and I've just been doing this for 50 years. No, okay? No. But at the same time, I think we all need to understand and listen to people who are older than us, who have good advice, and understand that when you're raising children, the choice to have children, why you want to have children, how many children you want to have, how you're going to raise those children specifically is a big topic. It's going to be the biggest topic of your life, because guess what? You're going to care about someone, your spouse, but you're also going to care about your children very much too, and you're going to want to bring them up in the admonition of the Lord. naturally. Another thing is your finances. Like, how are you going to spend money? Do you spend money differently? Are you just someone who just takes whatever you have and you're just like, well, hope it doesn't run out? Those are all things that come into play when you get married. And guess what? It's not just once you have children. It's who you are before you have them. It's who you are as a person. It's what you believe in. It's what your worldview is. It's how you're going to raise them eventually. And not just them, but it's how you're going to interact with other people. What your worldview is tells a lot to the other people in the world about who you are. And if you are married to someone who has a worldview that is very different than yours, even if you both believe in the Bible or are Christians, that doesn't mean that you're going to be aligned in the ways that you want to move your family forward, or that you have a worldview, or the principles that you have, or the convictions that you have, or the type of family culture that you want to build. This is why intentional dating is so important. And I'm not calling it courtship because there's so many different ways that people, I don't even know. Let's just not call it courtship for now because there's such a stigma with that. But intentional dating is just taking the time to get to know someone on a one-on-one basis, and obviously like you're dating them. It's just like you're dating them, but instead of just asking questions or like talking about your personalities or having fun together, you're actually taking time to talk about the things that are gonna matter. You're taking time to talk about why you believe what you believe. What do you believe about this? What do you believe about that? You're taking time to understand your worldview, and you're not just sitting there and saying, oh, well, we have two different worldviews, but at least we understand each other's worldviews, right? Like, that's great. No, you're understanding that if things are different in your worldviews or in the way you, like how many children you want to have or what type of children or what, not what type of children, but you know, yeah. What's going to happen if, something else happens, whatever. If you are talking about those things with the person you're dating and you're on very different planes and goals for your life, that should be a red flag. And I know that that's so crazy because you know what? They have a great personality and you really like them and they're a godly person and maybe they even have similar worldview as you. Maybe not the same, but maybe a similar worldview. But you're like, well, I know we have different goals, but like, we'll figure that out when we're married. And guess what? That's just not the case. You can't just assume someone will change. People change on their own if God changes through them or if they come to that conclusion by their own. But you cannot change other people. And too often, especially girls, but too often we as Christians date someone desiring some sort of change out of them. And that is not the intention of dating. That's not the purpose of dating. The purpose of dating is an evaluation of finding a person that you would like to spend the rest of your life with. Because at the end of the day, you're either going to be dating for someone to marry or you're going to be dating for a breakup. And so you have to decide, what are the characteristics that I'm looking for in a spouse? What are the ones that are fine to go out the window, and what are the ones that I'm really gonna stick to? What are some goals that I have for my life? For instance, I knew of a couple that was dating, and the one individual in the couple relationship wanted 4 kids, hated traveling, didn't want to do any of that, and the other person in the couple relationship was like, wanted to travel their whole life and see the whole entire world and have 0 kids. And let me tell you, at the end of the day, had they gotten married, it would not have worked. It would not have worked because at the end of the day, they would have desired different things deep down in their hearts. Their worldview, their goals for life, what they valued in life was so totally different. Even though they were both Christians, they liked each other's personalities, they had fun together, like they enjoyed being, boyfriend and girlfriend, partners, like they enjoyed being together and being best friends and all of that. But at the end of the day, it wouldn't have worked out long term because they had different goals. Now, some people might say, oh, well, that's a place where they can compromise. Like, they can have, they can then do 2 kids and then travel sometimes or something like that. And yes, compromise is true. Like, yes, there is that option open, but for some people who have deeply desired something, that's like if someone says, for their whole life they deeply desire to be like a teacher or something. And so let's say like they date this person's like, I never want to marry a teacher, I don't want to do that. We wouldn't sit there and say, oh, well, that person's horrible, like that person's wrong, blah, 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 blah. We just say they're different. Okay, they're too different to collide worlds. Like they have two different goals in life that they want to reach. Or some person, like I said, a person might desire travel, and that is the goals that they want to reach with their life, is seeing all these new places, and like they believe that life is about adventure. But another person might sit over here and say, I believe that life is about building family and relationships, and my life I want to spend doing X, Y, Z. And there might be another person over here who's like, I want to be a missionary, and that's the way that I want to serve the Lord. We wouldn't sit there and say, oh, you want to be a missionary? Well, let's find someone who's not a missionary, who doesn't desire to be a missionary, to marry you. Like, no. Are there some ways when you can compromise? Yes, but that should be done before you get married. All of those conversations should be happening before you get married and coming to conclusions together. And if you want to work it out together, that's fine, but it must be done in accordance with each other, so that way in marriage you are in unity together. This is my case for intentional dating. I think that dating with intention is very, very important, and I think that it really, really, really helps you understand what you want in a partner and in your spouse that you're going to have to choose for life. You make vows before the Lord that you are going to choose them for life. And that is why I think that dating with intention really helps you to bring you to that point. Now, other people will say, oh, well, what about if you're just a kid, like you're 15 or something? My question would be, why are you're either dating for breakup or marriage. That's all. That's the choices you get. Why would you purposefully choose to date someone at that age that you don't know if you would marry them or not? Or you know that you wouldn't marry them? Or maybe you think you might, but you're too young to tell. Why would you make that choice? That doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So maybe if you're like, oh, well, I could put it, that is why I strongly advocate for, if you are old enough to be married, or you're getting close to being old enough to be married, and you're kind of at that stage, you're getting to that stage, that is when you should start launching into dating and launching into this intentional dating evaluation. And not that you're not like, oh, like I don't know if I like the person, like I'm not saying go out with any random person and just be like, I'm gonna intentionally date you. No. Obviously it's with a person you like, a person that maybe you were friends with for a while, maybe you already know some stuff about them, whatever the case might be. You can come into it however you want to, but then once you're in it, you have to be not afraid to break up with them if you need to break up with them, or you need to not be afraid to go to the next step with them.